This is a review video for a free photo editor that's provided by a company called BeFunky, and they are at befunky.com. Their basic photo editor is free of charge, and you can get a premium subscription that gives you access to a lot more things. But we are just going to today look at the free version. So let's get started. So sometimes you get this screen up, sometimes you don't. If you do get the screen up, you can opt to do whatever it is you want to do. And we want to edit a photo, but this also allows you to make collages, and it allows you to do some level of graphic design as well, which is really great. I haven't looked at either of those, so I'm going to stick with the edit a photo. So the first screen you're going to come onto is where you need to go and grab your image. I've got an image sitting on my desktop that I'm going to use, so I'm just going to go out of shot, grab it, and literally drag it onto the screen. So as soon as it comes up onto the screen, it works really fast, which is brilliant. You get up this left-hand menu, which is essentially all the different editing tools you've got. Anything that's got a little orange star that looks a bit like a sheriff symbol, that's the premium option, so you don't have access to those unless you actually pay. You can see they've got a blue upgrade up in the top right hand corner. If you click on that, it will give you the price to be able to upgrade. But at the moment we're going to stick with the free version because to me it's got everything you need if you're doing some sort of basic editing. So the first thing that I'm going to look at is the top one, which is the crop. So this image was shot in landscape mode, which means it's longer along the top than it is down the side. You can set the orientation by clicking it straight into portrait or keeping it in landscape, and you'll immediately have a crop box come up, and you've got these little anchor points, so you've got them in the corners, you've got little anchor points in the middle, so by grabbing each one individually you can drag the box. We're on their aspect ratio freeform, so basically the box is flexible and will follow you wherever you want to go. If you use this drop-down menu, you can, you've got a variety of different options. The first one is to keep the crop box fixed to the ratio the image was shot in. So it's going to keep, so even if you move the mouse around, it's going to keep it locked in that aspect ratio, which sometimes is quite nice, especially if you're cropping into things like landscape photos or a photo, or if you're on a portrait, a photo of a person. But for this instance, they have the option to do a square, which is what I'm going to use, because often on websites, squares are great because you can create grids and everything's always going to line up. So that's a really good one to use. And then you haven't got to worry about tweaking things. Squares also work really well on social media, in Instagram, in Facebook. So a square is a really good option if it's a product, in particular a product that you're trying to edit a photo of. Just out of interest, they have lots of different ratios that you can do here. They've even got the fixed ratio for doing a Facebook cover, a Twitter header, YouTube cover, and a Pinterest pin. So yeah, there's loads of them, which is really good. Anyway, we are going to go back and I am going to talk about or use the square option. So it's on the square, so I don't need to necessarily change the size. So I'm going to pick up the whole box by holding my mouse left hand button on my mouse down and just literally dragging the whole box around to make sure that my piece is central. If I wanted to go in closer, I can just grab these corners again to make the box bigger or smaller. And as soon as I'm happy that it's cropped to the right size, I come over here, you press the tick, and that's it, which is great. So the next one is resize, and resize is important if you're doing photos for the web, because this photo in particular was shot on a DSLR, so it's a very big file. At the moment it's 2,500 megapixels, which is pretty much up at print size, not a good size for web. At this size, it would load incredibly slowly onto a website and would probably cause you to lose more customers than you would gain, because they'd have to wait a matter of minutes for these photos to load up onto your website. So the first thing we want to do is change the size down to a better size for going up on either web or social media. Before I jump into that, I'm going to jump over and show you a great site. This is a site called Sprout Social, which is a really interesting name. And this blog post is by a Kevin King, which is another great name. And this is an up-to-date blog post about the different pixel sizes for social media posts. It covers almost everything. It's absolutely brilliant. He's done a really good job. He's covered all of these. If you click on these, you'll zoom down to the bit you're interested in. Cover one is one that's important if you've got a business. And I have one recommendation here. He's got the images down for the different size of displays. The cover image is the one that sits behind your profile picture at the top of your page on a business. It's also the same on any personal profile. On desktop, so on a computer view, it's at 820 megapixels wide and 312 high. On mobile, so on any tablet or any mobile phone, the width reduces to 640 and the height goes up a little bit to 360. So from previous personal experience, I created my first cover for my business at 320. When I went and viewed it on my tablet at 640, it cut the sides off, so I had lost a bit of the image on either side. So my personal preference now, and the thing I would recommend to anybody looking at Facebook covers, is make your cover at 640 by 360. And when it shows up on desktop view, it won't have stretched it, it will have enlarged it to be 820, and you will have just lost a little bit top and bottom. So as long as you are aware of that, when you are making your cover, leave yourself a little bit of space so nothing important is at the very top and bottom, and make it at 640 wide by 360 high, and you'll be absolutely fine. If you want to look at any other images, then you've got everything here. I won't go further into that. I was just doing that tiny little bit about Facebook covers because I've come across that recently myself. So we're going to go back to Photo Editor. This particular image is not for my social media feed. This is actually for a website. So I know from building websites that the best size of an image, if I'm going to build a grid of 3 images, so I've got a grid that's 3 images wide, and then I make as many rows deep as I want, that the best size for my images are 400 pixels each. So to make this one 400 pixels, I just literally need to go into that box and type in 400. And then because I fixed the aspect ratio as a square, as soon as I click out of that width box, it's automatically dropping the height because we've got this lock aspect ratio ticked. If that wasn't ticked, you could actually change the scale of the photo here. So if you're preserving the crop that you've done previously, just make sure the lock aspect ratio is ticked. And say if it's a Facebook cover, so you're doing 640 wide, as soon as you clicked out of that, it would tell you what the automatic height was, and I would hope that it would be already set at 360. So this is telling me that this shows how much reduction we've done, because this is now telling me it's 16% of the original size of the photo, but that's not particularly relevant at this point because what we want to look at and what is important is the pixel size. So that's done. I'm happy with that. That's going to now take us back to this screen, and then we've got options to do things like rotate. This is great. I mean, for a free photo editor, I'm amazed that you can actually use a slider and rotate your image. It's brilliant. There's not a lot of free editing software out there where you can tweak, because often you don't want to turn an image 90 degrees, but you might want to tweak it by 1 or 2 degrees, and this actually allows you to do that. I don't want to do that, but so I'm going to set it back to 0 because it was straight, and I'm just going to click the cancel. One thing to mention is that on this bottom bar down here, you've actually got an undo. So if you don't like what you've previously done, then just come in and click undo. You've got a reset, which will take you right back to the beginning. You've got a little history. If you click that, it's going to show you the history of what you've been up to. So we've literally only cropped and resized. This gives you this bit over here. You can fit your image to the screen. You can go, oh no, we can't go full screen because there we go, it's a premium. So we can't do that one, but we can use fit to screen, and you can also zoom in and out like this. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, fit to screen means that's at 400 pixels, that's the biggest size the photo is going to show on a screen without going heavily pixelated. So looking at the other ones, I don't particularly need to change the exposure on this image, but you have the option to adjust your exposure. You can brighten the image, you can contrast, do highlights or shadows. So just by using the slider, and personally I would say to anybody who's unused to editing images, just play around. That's the best way you can learn, is by playing around, seeing what things do, if you don't like it, use the undo. One more just a quick tip when it comes to adjusting brightness and contrast. The sort of rule of thumb with brightness and contrast is if you up your brightness, up your contrast a little bit as well. That tends to keep the photo balanced. If you up your contrast a lot, you tend, as you can see here, your image tends to look faded. If you then come in and up the contrast, it brings, I mean, I've gone extremes here, but you can see how if you up the contrast, it starts to bring back some of that fading and bring it back in line. Personally, I wouldn't recommend upping your contrast too much unless you've really shot in a dark environment. Other things you can do are, I have no idea what beautify means. Let's have a look. Okay, that appears to be adjusting the background and leaving the piece that of jewelry unchanged. Okay, maybe that's a good one for beautifying people. Okay, so you can also change your colours a bit. I generally don't mess with colour unless I really need to. But yeah, hue and saturation are things that best left alone if you want true colour to show on your photos. Sharpen, if you feel like your picture is a little bit blurred, then you can sharpen it a bit. I would just watch. You can see if I slide it all the way one way or another. If you sharpen too much, it just goes really sort of granulated. Sometimes it's nice if you've got a very slight sort of shake on your picture, just up your the sharpness a little bit will help take that out. If it's sharp, then you don't need to do anything at all. So that's all I'm going to do with this image. If you're just changing your images a little bit just to suit putting them up online, the main things you want to look at is the resize is the major one, and crop if your photo isn't the sort of view that you want to see, or if you've got a photo and you want to crop into a small portion of it, then crop is a good one, and then rotate if your image is slightly off one way or another. So that's it for the editing side. Now I'm going to go to save, and you get the choice. You can save it back to your computer. You can make a BeFunky account and save it there. It allows you to save to Google Drive, and you can upload it directly to Facebook, Dropbox, Pinterest or Twitter. Personally, I tend to just put everything directly on my computer. So it's now giving me the chance to rename my photo. So for my sakes, I would just put edit. Just so I know that this is an edited version of this image. I'm going to keep it as a JPEG. It's 79 KB, which is a decent size to go up online. And I'm going to click save. And that's it. So that's the review. I think this is a fantastic piece of software. I'm amazed that it's free. There are others. This is not the only company that do this type of software. I've just picked this one because I found it very easy to use. So yeah, look into others that do similar things. You'll find they all have this same sort of menu. So it's up to you. Thanks for watching.